Groom Podcast.
All right, so this is the Groom Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan. This is my good friend,
Jared Tolbert.
And today we're talking about Area 51 and overall the Nevada test site and everything kind of involved with national security out there in the deserts of Nevada. And obviously, the podcast is called Groom Podcast. This is a brand new podcast. We're pretty much brand new to this. Just two guys here on a couch talking to you about some things that interest us. If you like this type of content and want more, subscribe to the channel. This is brand new. And we named the podcast after Groom Lake, where Area 51 is located, because what better place to name a spooky content podcast?
Yep. I was just going to say that, we both kind of knew that our first episode, it would have to be Area 51.
Yeah.
Like, Groom Lake Podcast, Area 51, it has to be the first episode.
Yeah, I'd say if you do this, Groom Lake Podcast, I kind of figured, that's the one thing that, hey, where's your Area 51 episode at? And
yeah, everybody will be commenting.
Where's your Area 51 episode at? It's a ripoff. This isn't cool. You know what I mean? So Jared, what are your, before we did this, what are your overall thoughts on Area 51? No knowledge.
Oh man, no knowledge. Well, actually, you were the one that got me into the whole thing.
I'm the conspiracy theorist.
5 or 6 years ago, probably. And there is a lot that goes into it, like just things that we will never know. Nobody will ever know. The only, I guess, what should I say? The only thing or organization that will know is obviously the government.
Yeah.
So all of this, everything that we do talk about, as much as it is, like, you could say it's evidence, factual evidence, it's still all, in a way, just conspiracies.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about it like this, right? You think of, the Cold War. This base was allegedly formed by the CIA in 1955, and before then, it was called Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Field, and it was that until 1947. Now, interestingly enough, that's the same year that the whole Roswell incident happened in New Mexico, which, whether you believe that or not, an alien saucer crashed and they moved it somewhere, God knows where. But in 1955, though, it became a base for the CIA. And the interesting thing is, you think about the 50s and after World War II, that's the Cold War era, right? You had America and you had the Soviets.
Yeah.
Right? And, if you put conspiracy beside, one thing we can say for sure that the CIA released is that, the U-2 spy plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
To fly higher than you possibly could with any other aircraft at that time, right? To basically have surveillance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously, we did a lot of research into this and jotted down some notes and stuff. And I was just going to point out, going along, because you were saying, 1955, and just some, quick, time frames along of how everything got started. You were talking about the U-2 spy plane, and I wanted to bring up a name that I did jot down. His name is Clarence Kelly Johnson.
All right.
Did you ever hear that name?
No, I haven't heard of him.
So he is believed to have been the main pusher of basically he was one of the main developers of a lot of those planes.
Okay.
He was the main guy under, I believe the name is Lockheed Skunk Works?
Lockheed Martin, yeah, it's a company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the main guy that had developed a lot of these planes, and I guess it was from a time frame of at least 1943 to about 1975.
Okay.
So he was there for a lot of the big spy planes that exceeded all of the limits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was also really the one, at least from some research that I had seen, that he kind of put all this on the map with the Project Blue Book and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Because at the time that was so classified and top secret, but he was kind of the one that identified a UFO and made it public. And at the time, it was everybody was well, this is so classified, he's going to catch fire for it. But
Yeah.
a couple years later, he was praised for that.
Yeah.
For putting, for putting UFOs on the map and also putting Area 51 on the map because it was so underground for a long time until he finally, after years of building obviously unbelievable aircraft, to where he kind of went on to the weird side of UFOs and was able to
Did you ever hear of the SR-71 Blackbird?
Yeah.
Is that something he developed too, I would assume? That was in the late 60s, I think.
Yeah, I actually had seen another thing about that as well. Well, we'll hit it soon, but regarding to the SR-71, I found a quick interview from a guy that was a pilot of that. Now, I don't know if Clarence Kelly Johnson exactly developed that.
Yeah.
Because he was there until 1975.
Okay.
So he might have had a pretty big part in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fella's name though that was the pilot of the SR-71 was believed to, one of them at least was believed to have been David Prehoff.
Okay.
That's the one interview that I found. Now, obviously, there's a lot of pilots that are on the line of around that time frame, but he was believed to have been the pilot in 1967.
Okay. It sounds about like the right time frame.
Yeah.
It's crazy you think about it, right? You think about like technology. Think about like the 50s, jet aircraft, Korea War, and then you got Vietnam in the late 60s, right? And think about the gap between like the U-2 and like the SR-71. It's like you're going from an aircraft that's, I don't know, probably above the speed of sound. I think it was like 800 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
To like the SR-71, that's what, like Mach 3.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, roughly like 1,000, 2,000 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely insane. Like, I mean, thank you for pointing out these calculations because I didn't know exactly like how fast it went and everything. That's absolutely insane. The only thing that I found out actually was from David Prehoff, the interview that I watched.
Okay.
He said that just as a reference now, that the SR-71, when he was a pilot for it, you could go from coast to coast in 1 hour.
1 hour?
Yes.
Really?
Coast to coast of the United States.
Oh man, maybe that's faster than what I calculated. If any of you out there have any like hard evidence on this, I'll do some research after this, of course. You comment below, right down below in the comments. If you know something more than we do.
No, for real. And I mean that's the thing, because like we had said in the beginning, I mean, as much as we will talk about this, and as much research as we do, and quote unquote evidence that we find, it's still all up in the air.
Yeah.
Like, everything from the base itself to everything that, guys like David Prehoff and Clarence Kelly Johnson, all these other people are saying, it's still all really conspiracy theories. It's hard to tell what is true and what isn't, Yeah. It's insane.
So, interestingly enough, I was doing some research, and I found out essentially that before the Army moved in and the CIA bought that whole spot, way back in I have it written down here, 1864, there were mines established in the Groom Lake area, and they were I have it written down here as well because I can't remember exactly. They were lead and silver mines.
Really?
In the area. Yeah. Now, I'm not too certain of the materials they used to build any planes, but I was thinking, I wonder if that had any say in, like, okay, like, we're moving a base here that, nobody can get to. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's also lead and silver deposits here. Like, I wonder if they were able to use that. I mean, I'm pretty uneducated on what aircraft materials were used and whatever, but, I wonder if that helped to a certain degree, even just to build a base, Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that could play a part in it. I mean, obviously, overall, just of how in the middle of, like, how remote it is.
Yeah.
All in all, I mean, the mines could have played a really big part in that. But overall, though, I mean, if you pull it up on Google Maps, Apple Maps, it's the most remote location you could go. So I guess for the secrecy of it, for the secrecy of it, You know, that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with the whole general Nevada test site area, Tonopah test site, we'll be getting into that in a little bit. I might put in some pictures of like satellite pictures, which also I found out. Speaking of satellite pictures, apparently, now I didn't know this because I've been interested in this stuff since I was a kid. I guess Area 51 in like satellite view was like blurred out up until 2018.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never known that.
So I guess you couldn't like zoom in and like look at anything. Wow. I mean, not that you can't anyway. That's an interesting thing I'm thinking of, right? So like now there's satellites in the air and whatnot, and obviously, I mean, that was kind of an issue during the Cold War too. Maybe not as much.
Yeah.
But maybe like late 80s. Late 80s kind of. You know.
I get that. Yeah.
Like honestly, like if you actually believe like the whole alien thing, right? That there's crashed ships and whatnot. Like, do you really think that it's gonna be on the surface? There's you know what I mean.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
Like if you're gonna do it, you can't make it obvious.
No, exactly. And to go off of that, in one of the videos I was watching, it was actually like right before we came over to do this podcast. I was watching a quick video, and there was a fella that they had taken him to some of the mines around the area because he was a miner since he mined in that area, particularly around Area 51 in about 1992.
Okay.
And he had said that he believes that the pictures or the satellite pictures are most likely old pictures of it.
Okay.
Like it's not the current picture. Like he believes that they became so big into digging up that everything has only gone underground. Because obviously they probably have so much stuff that if they were to expand, it would just become more noticeable by the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could definitely understand that. I saw that video, and there was another one too about underground railways.
Okay,
that run between different bases and actually, let me pull that up real quick.
He's pulling it up.
Yeah, like it said. So regarding to the underground tunnels, so like I said, this man believes that they are only going underground at this point because of how much they have and for the secrecy of everything. Because if they were to expand the location anymore, like I said, it would become a lot more noticeable.
Yeah.
And a satellite picture, if they were to update it, it would probably be if they stayed on land and not underground. I mean, the place would be insanely huge. Yeah. Like almost too big for the land that it's already on.
Yeah.
But he believes that the dirt is just all being dug up and it's all going to the nearby mines. And get this, he believes that they are they're piling this dirt because where's the dirt going to go? Okay. If it goes to the mines. Yeah. That the only way they could do it, he believes that they are heat bleaching all of this dirt. So what I'm getting at is they're using, at least from what he had said, he believes that they're using a combination of mercury and cyanide. That they use these hoses that when they pile all the dirt up into these mountains or like boulders, they put these hoses in about 2 feet apart, cyanide and mercury. Okay. And it literally just completely disintegrates it. Like it completely just tears down the dirt. Like it could take a boulder and completely melt it down to dirt and it goes straight to the mines.
That's pretty far out.
Absolutely. I was listening to this and I was literally my father and I were watching this and we're like they're melting mountains with cyanide. I'm telling you guys, some of this stuff out there is absolutely insane, but you cannot just let it go because you really never know. Yeah. If it's true or not, But it is a good point because if you're digging that much, I mean, all of the dirt, if they're really going underground with this, you can't just pile it up and pile it up and pile it up. you got to do something with it.
Yeah.
You know, you got to put it back to the floor. So
Yeah.
there's a possibility.
You said mercury and cyanide.
He said that it's a mixture of mercury and cyanide, and they run these hoses through, you know, when they pile up the dirt, the mountains, they run these hoses through through the dirt. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but they run it through the dirt and they release the mercury and cyanide, and supposedly it melts it all. It completely tears it down, and it goes, you know, over into the nearby mines. And he also claims that, you know, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it too, that there's probably a lot of hush-ups that have happened. Because a lot of coal miners that work around there, I mean, they have to be aware of the land that's being torn down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they're really going underground with this, and which I believe that there's a great possibility.
Yeah.
That, I mean, of all of the things you hear, like even stuff out in California with like Elon Musk and stuff, some of the more advanced guys, you know, they're claiming that the country or even the world can go underground. And become advanced underground through technology and, you know, everything that's out there today. So, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, but something like that though is just, I don't know, man, it's insane.
Yeah,
I don't mean to go on about it, but
it's pretty far out.
Yeah, and then to go, well, like I said, the Underground Railway, I'll hit on that real quick. What it was actually in the same video that I was watching, and there's a theory that goes out there that says that they had built, like, in these underground tunnels for the workers to obviously travel around, to get around quickly, and they have these railways, and they think it's a pretty good possibility based on locations. Like, these are like supposedly legit railways that run through the Cheyenne Mountains in Colorado.
Okay.
And then it goes down to, I might pronounce this wrong, Dulce? It's in...
Dulce?
Yeah, it's in New Mexico.
I think that's how you say it.
And it's also believed to be another extraterrestrial type base. Okay. And then it runs to, I might pronounce this wrong, Los Alamos.
That's correct, yeah.
New Mexico. Then it goes down to, I'm going to pronounce this. I might pronounce this wrong.
Albuquerque?
Albuquerque, New Mexico. So there's a couple locations in New Mexico. Then it goes down to Roswell, New Mexico as well. Okay. And then guess what? It goes back up to Area 51. Okay. So if these are legit, then you know that they got all of it. They got a whole path down. Yeah. Through all of that. You know, it's insane to think about.
You just reminded me of this, right? So you think about tunnels and you think about transport. And, you know, you have allegedly the Janet flights that fly out of McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, right? Which is allegedly, a terminal of the airport, which McCarran Airport, I think, is an international airport in Las Vegas. Too bad we can't go. We're all the way here in Pennsylvania. But you can't get in without, like, identification, certain, you know, I'm sure clearance. You know, and the interesting thing is, you know, people have filmed from the mountains out there, you know, like them flying in, them flying out. They land at the airport. You know, people are being transported. But, you know, interesting thing is, is part of the kind of Nevada test site, you know, and the interesting thing too, think about it, is I'm sure one of the reasons, even if it's not aliens, the whole base is so secret, is it's literally a testing site. Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons. It's a whole testing field ground, right, for the U.S. military. And so, like, you think about it like that, and, well, you have to house the people who are working for you. So I think south of Groom Lake, Area 51, you know, officially known as, I had it here, Homie Airport, right? Okay. South of there is a town called Mercury, Nevada.
Oh, really?
Which is the only town in the United States that is closed off to the public. It runs next to Highway 95 in Nevada, and there's an exit, I believe, and you drive along that exit, and there's signs, and you cannot go through. Now, I was reading up on this, that allegedly, let me get closer to the microphone here, allegedly the site was founded in 1950, and pretty much the population was booming throughout the years, right? They had a lot of workers and whatnot, but the population went down a good bit in 1992. Whenever the nuclear treaty happened, they stopped nuke testing here in the Western world anyway. You know, North Korea, they do their own thing.
But for sure, yeah.
But it's still closed off though. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, it's part of this whole testing range. You can't go there. You know, there's labs, and I guess there's even police stations, movie theaters, dining halls, restaurants. It's a whole town. And
completely sealed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that also brings up things like I was saying, like you think about, you know, like this whole, you know, miles and miles and miles of land, right? This base wasn't always there. This wasn't always closed up to the public. And so I was reading up on that, and I came across this guy. You may or may not have heard of him. If any of you have heard of this story before, cool. This guy's name is Jerry Freeman, and he's an archaeologist, and allegedly he survived a week in Area 51. And he was essentially following the path of the Death Valley 49ers, which was a group of people trying to make it to the west from the east.
Yeah.
And they allegedly went through the area, which is Groom Lake, and south of Area 51, Papoose Lake. And allegedly, like, one of their carts is there, I think. They took a shortcut or something like that. And Jerry Freeman, being an archaeologist interested in history, not in, like, the whole alien thing, to him it's kind of bogus. He stayed there allegedly a week. And you could find this online. Maybe I'll put a picture of him here. And basically, he stayed in there, and he said he saw some really weird things. And I think I sent it to you earlier, a little picture. It was an article, and he said, allegedly, on Papoose Lake, he saw lights. Now, if you look on maps, there's nothing there. It's a dry lake bed. There's nothing there. But he said he saw lights. And interestingly enough, this happened in 1997. Jerry died a couple years after that of cancer, which is interesting. He came out with his story and everything. He died of cancer.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking, okay, there was nuclear testing and whatnot on that area, so maybe he got a dose of radiation. Some people online said that he already had cancer before he did this, allegedly. I'm not really too sure. But if he's telling the truth, you know, that he went out there, survived a whole week, you know, allegedly. Yeah. And he came back and, you know, he saw some interesting things. And plus, he got what he was after, you know, about history and culture. Not so much about the whole alien thing. That's really interesting. Yeah. That he went out there, you know, and did that.
Absolutely, yeah. And you said, though, that Papoose Lake, that he identified it as that, but it's not an actual thing? Like it's not...
It is a thing. It's a dry lake bed.
Okay.
They call, that's why they call Groom Lake. They're dry lake beds, right? So, like, he said he saw lights. Like lots of lights.
But that's what they're putting down, is that there weren't... So the lake is a real thing, but they're, you know, obviously they're going to put down the fact that there were lights. Yeah. That there were possibly lights.
Lights, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said they were there and he didn't see them before. They were at night. It was pitch black. You know, he said he saw some weird things. Yeah. But, I mean, then again, though, too, I mean, it's not like he's out there looking for these things.
That's true. Yeah, because you said he was
looking for something else.
Yeah.
And also, like I said before, in the 1800s and up until mid-1950s, you know, there were miners. There were people there who had families, who lived out there, who mined, you know, trying to make a better life. You know, like the whole gold rush thing, 1849, you know what I mean? Like that whole kind of wave of people who moved to the west from the east, right? And that kind of reminds me, obviously, you know him. I know him, not personally. we're not that cool people.
We wish.
Bob Lazar.
Oh, man.
His story's always intrigued me. And I've seen people analyze him. His story's pretty consistent, you know what I mean? And even like on the Joe Rogan podcast, you know, his head's hurting because of how much stress this makes him. Like how much stress it makes him have is what I mean. Yeah. Right? And, you know, he came forward in 1989, allegedly worked at, you know, south of Area 51 on Papoose Lake, which he alleges is like a camouflaged hangar in the side of a mountain, which you made me think of. He said, well, if they have cyanide and mercury, they melt stuff down. So if that is true, I might be wrong about this, but maybe that process helped them make this base.
Exactly.
And who knows the technology they have, so they could possibly camouflage the base.
Exactly.
Right? And,
exactly.
You looked a little bit more into his story. You have anything about that, Bob Lazar?
Well, I was just going to say on the topic of talking about, what they could use, like cyanide and mercury and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, cyanide and mercury is one thing. But think about element 115.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, cyanide and mercury might sound pretty crazy. They're melting boulders. Like, to us, that is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But 115, and if I have it right, it's believed to be called moscovium.
Okay, yeah.
And, dude, it generates gravity.
Okay.
Like, okay, aside, like, put cyanide and mercury, put that all aside, and think about that. Like, it literally makes gravity on its own.
That's impossible, yeah?
Exactly.
Well, you would think, right?
Exactly. And, you're talking about how, advanced they could be. I mean, that just goes to show. And you figure that was back. I mean, Bob Lazar was there probably like the late 70s, early 80s?
Well, he worked at Los Alamos, the lab you mentioned.
Yeah.
In 1982. And then he said in the podcast and different interviews, he said he was working at 51 or S4, the secret part of it, in 88, 89. So late 80s.
Okay. I see.
And I think he said he was there for 6 months, I think is what he said.
I see.
And he said something along those lines that whatever they had generated gravity, which is an absolutely insane concept, right?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, like a planet makes gravity. It has gravity, a gravitational pull, like, let alone something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in your hands or, whatever.
Yeah, like the way that he was describing it too, he was like, like you can't, you can't put your hand on it.
Yeah.
And in one of the videos I was watching, they said that that's what helps, like element 115 helps UFOs remain unidentified. Like it's like around the
Cloak?
saucer. Yeah, like it almost takes out the visual detection.
Okay.
For with 115 almost like surrounding it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
In which it makes sense because Bob Lazar had said that you can't, like, if you put your hand around it, it's like a forcey field.
Yeah.
In a way, you put your hand on it, but you can't actually get into it. So I guess it would make sense, like if you see something in the air, and if there is something around it, then you can't. Yeah, it'd be impossible to tell what it is. To get to really get something onto it. It's really weird.
And if I'm not mistaken, element 115 wasn't an element till like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, what he was dealing with back then is non-existent back then, but it was existent like years afterwards, essentially.
Exactly.
Right?
And like the thing about his story though, man, is I mean, he's only one person.
Yeah.
Out of everybody that has worked there. So obviously the government, they're gonna have him on a chokehold. I mean, his records, work history, everything has been completely scrubbed. Like the government is gonna tear him down and make him look like he never worked there. In which I mean, at one point S4 was basically a myth. Like Bob Lazar was saying, he worked at S4. Yeah. S4 wasn't even, the government didn't even classify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even believed to be an actual site.
Yeah, I think S4 is still classified, but I think what you mean is Area 51 itself. Right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because the CIA declassified that in 2013, which is crazy because obviously there's something there. Yeah, I think Google Maps was out before 2013, so it's there.
Yeah,
you can see it's there.
Yeah,
right. And speaking of 51, the whole way, the way they got the name is from a company, or not a company, but organization, the Atomic Energy Commission. Way back in the day, it's not existent anymore, but that's it was a grid, I guess. Like a map, and it was in grid 51, supposedly. And speaking of numbers, on a separate test range, since this is part of the Nevada Test Range, you got the Tonopah Test Range, which I think is northwest of about 70 miles or so of Area 51, Groom Lake, Nevada Test Range, all that stuff. And there's allegedly not allegedly, it's there, right? It's called, they call it Area 52, and it's unlike Area 51, where that's just kind of like a call sign. People say, oh, Area 51, but it has like Homey Airport, right?
Okay.
Groom Lake, whatever the official name for it is. Like, you've got Area 52 being the official call sign for this base. They test drones and chemical weapons as well,
Wow.
I think. And the interesting thing, I think, too, is that it's newer. It's a newer base. It's a newer place. Security is probably tighter, too, I'd say. I'm not really too sure. You can't, don't take my word for that. But I'm pretty sure that's what I've somewhat have heard about.
Oh, yeah, I bet, man. Yeah, for sure. That's insane. And that's the thing, too. Like you and I were talking privately earlier, like how drones are, I mean, the aircraft they made or they constructed back then was insane.
Yeah.
But I feel like drones are going to be, I mean, they're already on another level.
Yeah.
I mean, they're over here delivering packages for Amazon and stuff.
Yeah.
And
you're going to be workers pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like robots,
Yeah, exactly.
AI.
Yeah.
That whole, shamble of things.
Yeah.
Essentially. And the thing is, too, you think about the world now, and it's like almost like a Cold War again with China and Russia and the war in Ukraine and all the different stuff happening. There's just quite a lot of tension on a global scale, right? Mm-hmm. So I think our government has the right to national security. But then again, too, aside from national security, talking about the UFOs and that, there was a whole hearing back last August. They were supposed to have a second hearing. What happened to that? If any of you know anything about that, what happened to the second hearing? There was supposed to be one in September, or I can't remember if the hearing was in July or August. I think it was in August. So they're supposed to have another one in September with David Grush, I think his name was.
Okay. He
was allegedly a witness, and he said whatever it was, the craft, the technology was of non-human origin. That doesn't mean aliens, but non-human origin is kind of
exactly
a little head-turning, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever watch that hearing? Did you see it at all?
I honestly, I didn't even really know about it until you told me about it recently. Because going off a UFO, unidentified foreign object, you said that it's now under a different name?
UAP. That's what they call them now.
UAP.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
See, they'll just keep coming up with different terms.
I think because UFO is such a bogus term, that they probably wanted to come up with something new, I guess. where Congress is talking about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, let's come up with a new term that's more, not so loopy, not so
fancy.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
So, your personal opinion on the base and from what you sort of know now, do you think it's more of a military operation in the sense that it's okay, it's just a test site for planes and stuff like that, or do you believe there's more than they say?
That's
a tough question.
That's the thing, though, man, because really over the last week was the first time that I really dove into it. Because you would send me clips and stuff in the past of radio talk shows and things like that, like small stuff. But I mean, I think there's definitely a good part. I feel like it's a mix of both.
Uh-huh.
I think on, we were talking about earlier with the whole underground tunnels and railways and stuff, I think on the surface today, it is a general military base. They're testing general aircraft and things like that. But I think now underneath of the surface, if you
I see what you did there.
Yeah, underneath, I think that's where it starts to get weird.
And you reminded me too. It's I was reading something about the U-2 spy plane way back when, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was they had papers and documents about it, but they weren't labeled top secret. So if somebody on accident dropped it on the street, you wouldn't think nothing of it. Just pick it up, throw it away. So you never know what is laying around the street. It could be some sort of big top secret.
Oh, no doubt.
Document.
Yeah.
And I mean, nowadays, you have files online and stuff like that. So, I mean, you really just don't know. You know what I mean? Nowadays, stuff's probably online. This was sort of, locked server or something like that.
Well, I mean, even what, I guess, getting back on the topic of, the whole Bob Lazar story, that was one thing he said, too, though. He was it was almost they would put paperwork out there, but sometimes it's they were trying to play with you a little bit. Yeah. It wasn't...
Intentionally mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, that's the thing about this whole conversation. Like, what is real and what isn't?
Yeah.
Seriously, it's insane.
And one thing we're looking forward to doing in the future with this podcast is obviously, like I said earlier, we can't go to Area 51. We're not in Nevada. As two people, it's kind of a long way out of the way. But this whole podcast, the whole idea of it is to talk about things since we're friends. Just talk about it as people, what our opinions on it are, what we know is fact, what we don't know is fact, you know, what's kind of the underlying myth about it, what's really going on, and like various more stuff we'll dive into in the coming weeks. You know, that's more local here in Pennsylvania that we could probably go and visit, go see some of the sites and get some more hands-on stuff with it so we can probably come to a better conclusion. But since the podcast is a Groom Lake podcast, what better way to start it than with Area 51? I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Like.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. You know, going all the way back, though, I don't know if we had talked about this. Did you ever hear about, like, the... let me see. The Vuka Flat, I believe it's pronounced Vuka Flat.
I can't say that I have, no.
Okay, so there was a crash, and I'll put down the exact date. It's May 19th, 1953.
Okay.
There was a crash on the Vuka Flat, and it was believed to be, you know, a UFO crash.
Yeah.
And they found, now, you know, this is all just a theory. Mm-hmm. But there was believed to have been found a 40 foot, or should I say a saucer with a 40-foot diameter. It was perfectly intact, and inside of it was 4 aliens.
Okay.
And one of them being included was our guy J-Rod.
Oh yeah.
J-Rod the alien. So what they did was they ended up taking it down to, because supposedly what happened was, to go back leading to the UFO crash, there was like some kind of nuclear test going on in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And it's so weird because I guess as that happened, the UFO crash happened like nearby.
Okay.
So they what they did was they found the UFO after they tested, you know, their nuclear stuff. They found this. They took it down to Kingman, Arizona, to examine it.
Is there a base down there, I'm assuming?
I couldn't tell you exactly what the base is called, but I just know that they said that there was 40 guys at the time. They took them on a bus, you know, blacked out the windows and everything, took it down to Kingman, Arizona to examine whatever this was. And they met their 4 friends, their 4 alien friends, including J-Rod.
Okay.
And then they shipped it to Groom Lake. And at the time, Groom Lake was very, very bare bones.
Okay.
So I guess that was kind of another, you know, there's been major.
You said 1953, right?
Yeah, it said it was May 19th, 1953.
So that's 2 years, right? Before allegedly the CIA and, you know, U.S. Air Force made the base, you know. I guess officially, not officially. Yeah. Right? And you said there were certain people who work with J-Rod, right?
Yeah. So going back to the first interview that I had seen was, it would have been, Bill Uhouse was his name.
Okay.
And he was a Navy pilot early on, but then he ended up getting into the Air Force, and he found his way into working in with the Area 51 base. Okay. It does say that he supposedly worked on the Kingman saucer. Okay. The one that was found in 1953, took it down, examined it. So he supposedly worked on it in later years. And he did say that he conversed with J-Rod. Okay. J-Rod spoke, and he said that when you would speak to him, when he would reply, he would sound just like you. And it like almost like parrot-like how parrots like mock you. Yeah. It was almost like that. But he said though that J-Rod provided mainly just engineering information, scientific information on the saucers that they had. Okay. To work on. Okay. That was the main interview that I watched with him. Okay. So it's hard to tell if it's true, but that's very interesting. Though.
I wonder how a little alien, from outer space, I wonder how it would mock you.
See,
does it think you're inferior? Because that's like a common theme is like, okay, little humans are inferior, we're dumb. Like that's kind of a common idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if it's like that, or if I wonder if it's just like a learning thing. Like how like birds, for example, you'll hear them tweet in the morning, and like even for example, I've read that like what'll happen is they'll mimic car horns, like car alarms going off,
okay,
or cell phone noises now, because they pick up from what they learn. So I wonder if it's a similar thing with J-Rod, being some sort of other being, trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I communicate? Because allegedly, a lot of reports say the aliens are telepathic, right? They don't speak. So if it's trying to learn how to speak,
like a mix of that,
how do you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
If you just don't speak, well, then how do you learn to speak, right?
Yeah.
Like kids often mimic their parents. And
so that's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's where it starts out to like adapt to it. Yeah, and going down the rabbit hole of that of J-Rod.
Okay.
If he was real, I mean, he's believed to have been real.
What a name!
Because I'm telling you, it gets even crazier than this. Okay, so going down this rabbit hole, I found another man by the name of Dan Baresh, I believe you pronounce it. He was a microbiologist. But he supposedly took care of J-Rod.
Okay.
Personally took care of him for years. Now, I don't know the time frame, but he said he took care of him for years to keep him in good health.
Okay.
And he was kept in an underground chamber.
Okay.
So I guess to get back, to get on the topic of the whole underground thing, he was kept in an underground chamber on the base.
S4 confirmed.
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. U.S. Air Force, if you're seeing this, dude, we don't know nothing. Nothing.
Hey, we're just two guys on a couch.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
Yeah. Put a UFO propulsion system under this couch and we be rolling, baby.
Oh, man. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about J-Rod.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I wonder how he got that name.
I don't know.
J-Rod.
I really don't know. I tried to find some stuff, but Bill Uhouse, the Navy pilot, Air Force, he just said that he kind of just got it from his superiors, that they just like gave him that name and that was it. Yeah. So I'd assume there's other story. Our viewers probably know much more than I do. So they might know something, but.
Yeah.
But to go one more step, now this is the final one that I found. So going down the rabbit hole with J-Rod. Now this one is probably the most insane one.
Okay.
He is believed to have, well, maybe not necessarily J-Rod, but people along the lines of I guess aliens like him. Okay. Because they I guess they didn't give the others names.
Okay.
Like I guess J-Rod really stood out, so they named him that as a specialty. But the other ones they didn't exactly name. Okay. So I don't know I don't know if this was J-Rod maybe or if this was a different alien.
Okay.
But supposedly a UFO was brought out to Virginia.
All right.
It landed in Virginia in 1957. All right. Because at the time, Eisenhower was president.
Yeah. Great president.
True.
Who also allegedly met aliens, but we won't get into that.
Exactly. That was what I was just about to get at. So the UFO landed in Virginia in 1957, and then they ended up taking this UFO to the Pentagon to meet with Eisenhower, and supposedly in the first meeting that they had, the alien was worried about the nuclear weapons at the time that they were testing. Yeah. But I guess after that though, they had conversed a lot. They talked about, just ongoing issues. It's almost like this the system that they were on, the star system and stuff, it was like president meeting president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a leader meeting a leader, like whoever this UFO was, was some sort of leader trying to reach out and, I guess, give direction or give advice to the present. Like, it's so weird.
Well, like, one thing I've always noticed, just doing, like, a little bit of just, let me see what, is up in the UFO world. Like one thing you always hear on documentaries on History Channel, which, by the way, History Channel is pretty far out. You want to talk about far out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wild nowadays. But, like, you always hear about aliens and UFOs and nuclear weapons. They always, like, they've been spotted on nuclear bases. Obviously, Tonopah Test Range is nuclear test site.
Yeah.
And then, like, and how comes, like, all the alien sightings, well, most of them anyway, happen after 1945? 1947 Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's after 1945. It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, World War II. Like we awoke something or started something to where you let off a nuclear bomb and it's like a signal. It's like, okay, this civilization has reached this this level. It's like, okay, they have nuclear fission now. We should probably step in almost.
Yeah, that's true. Because obviously, if there was that many sightings in between that time frame,
Yeah.
then there was definitely a lot more going on before that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this was probably always happening.
Could be.
But then the government just decided, like you said, the government decided to just kind of lock it down.
Yeah.
It's really odd.
Yeah. I mean, depending on whether or not you believe it's nuclear weapons or not, like that brought aliens here, there's no denying, like there's, like, almost no alien sightings before 1945. There's just no way.
No.
Now, actually, funny enough, during World War II, they had what was called the Foo Fighters. And what it was is, like, pilots would see weird things in the sky. So, I mean, you could maybe argue that maybe there were sightings of UFOs and whatever else
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
the general consensus area. And, like, but I'd say nuclear, what's the word? Nuclear activity, was whoa, like what are you doing? Like, especially, there's UFO sightings by nuclear power plants and places like that, I don't know. I think there's some sort of connection, whether it's not their concern, they want to help us, or it's something about radiation or uranium and nuclear activity interests them. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say there's some sort of connection there that's questionable. It's just odd.
Very questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, questions that we've had for, well, not just us, but as humans
People,
for
yeah.
the last, 75 years
Yeah.
plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I mean, also, like, I don't know. It's just, like, it's hard to understand. Especially think of it like this. Like, if you're an alien race from a star system, what was it called again, the star system?
Give me 1 second.
The Zeta something, right?
Yeah, the Zeta. Man, I'm having a hard time pronouncing stuff. The Zeta Reticuli.
Okay.
There we go, Reticuli.
Zeta Reticuli. And I think I read up on that too. That wasn't found until, well, maybe it was found. I don't remember exactly. I think it was found, like, a long time ago. But one thing I always wonder, though, is, like whenever, like, people allegedly come in contact with aliens and that, how do we have the same names for things? Like, if an alien says, I'm from here, we have our own name for that. How would they have the same name for that? Like, on a constructive criticism, like, kind of skepticism type of viewpoint, okay, you've got tons of stars and tons of galaxies that we named humans. We have our own name for them, but if there are other civilizations, they've got to have their own names for things, because most names for things that we have are from our mythology and our history,
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know it's the same as, like, what we think it is,
Yeah, because to begin with, getting back to, like, J-Rod and everything, kind of mocking you, adapting to what they're trying to say. I mean, they don't.
Well, either that or they've been here longer than we think and they know more about us.
Yeah, maybe, and they're just playing with us.
Yeah. Yeah, some people believe
They're tricking us.
Some people believe, like, the Mayans and the Egyptians, the pyramids, all that stuff was aliens. I don't know if I completely believe that.
I don't.
There's
that's
good
a tough
sufficient
one.
evidence to say that, like, they were pretty advanced civilizations. They're pretty smart.
Yeah.
So give them credit for what they did rather than being like aliens. Just immediately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the stuff we can do. Although it's thousands and thousands of years have passed, but
Yeah, and then guess what? There's probably other UFOs, other people on other planets going, oh, alien. Like, they're calling us aliens. You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Like, if
just don't know.
if there is anything else out there,
Yeah.
they're probably thinking about us in the same way.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd say the universe is just too big. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've seen your fair share of kind of weird things. You know, I've seen my fair share of weird things.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I don't believe there's nothing. There's no way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now the questionable part that is more interesting, I think, is like, is it good? Is it bad? Do you know? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, even aliens, man.
Yeah.
I mean, are aliens good, or
Yeah.
are aliens just trying to kill us?
What about alleged abductions? You know what I mean? What about that?
Yeah.
And then alleged different species of alien. You know.
See, but the crazy thing is like aliens are one thing, and like diving into this, you know, it makes me believe it makes me believe it more, I should say. But when it came to like abductions, though, I was just always like, yeah, that's a movie thing.
Yeah.
Like abductions like that's just from like a sci-fi type movie.
Yeah.
But I mean that they supposedly have happened.
Yeah.
So,
some people, you know, it's funny because American Horror Story did this. Have you ever seen American Horror Story? The TV show?
I've seen it a little bit.
They did this, and lots of other movies have done this, where they say, well, Eisenhower, you know, gave them permission to abduct people for certain reasons. Now that's pretty bogus. Pretty bogus. But I mean, you don't know, do you?
Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
If that's true, I don't want to have a word with the government, man. That's
well,
weird.
The government was having a word with J-Rod or whoever these talking aliens were. I bet you they were taking orders from it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what they make it sound like.
And on top of that, too, I was going to say earlier, I kind of got off track, but like, how does a whole species of alleged alien from a different star system who has like obviously way more advanced technology, they can come all the way here, like how their power system and their structure of power is like completely different than like a little president, you know, on a little continent. We don't, you know, America doesn't rule the world. It's just one country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like their whole power system must be completely different than us. We're probably nothing to them. You know, but then again, that's a human thought though too. Oh, we're nothing. We always like underplay ourselves. But humans are pretty smart. But like, I mean, you just don't know, right? Mm-hmm. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to like, I don't know, I look at it, for me, it's from like a population standpoint, because I mean, America is obviously a very populated country. Our military is the most powerful military in the world, basically. Yeah. So, but that's the thing though about this, the Zeta Reticuli. That's how I pronounce it, right?
I think I keep
mispronouncing it.
I think it's reticuli, but I mean
reticuli.
It's a vowel.
Okay.
Whatever.
Like, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like, I'm not looking at the people that are there. I'm just looking at like, well, how many people are there? Because I mean, are they you know, are they bigger than the United States of America?
Yeah.
And
then how many planets do they live on? Like Earth,
exactly.
Earth population something billion, right?
Yeah.
But like, how many more does that happen if you colonize other planets?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's what I mean. I mean, I believe that whoever is there, you know, well, going from the generation of J-Rod, whoever is there, I mean, I'd assume they're very powerful people, but you never know. There could be, you know, a billion of them. There could be 10. There could be 10 of them.
Yeah,
you know. So
and on top of that too, it's like, well, you think about from obviously 1940s to now, technology's changed a lot. We've got cell phones. We're filming these on cell phones.
Yeah.
You got lights. You got computers, microphones, better microphones than we did back then. You know, tons of things, medicine. Cars, internet, everything you could possibly think of, right? Mm-hmm. Well, for a species that advanced back then, right, who can fly from another planet to here,
that's
allegedly,
true.
How much has technology changed for them in, you know, about 100 years or so? Like I wonder if it changes a lot, or if it's because they're already so advanced, it changes slowly. And I wonder if the technology advancement here on Earth is because of that. Like, how much of that has affected our military spending and, like, the advancement of technology as a whole.
So you mean, like, if the government or say the Area 51, if people have really been engineering, experimenting with that,
Yeah.
how much it's helped us advance.
Yeah, or
in a sense.
or just like for example, like how much this technology advanced for them. I wonder, how fast does it advance for them? You know,
Yeah.
like since they're already pretty advanced, I don't know. Is there something more advanced than that? It's probably too much to comprehend.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, a UFO in itself, you know, element 115, mixed gravity type thing. You know,
Yeah, and
cloaking and all that. It's very kind of out there. You know.
yeah, and I mean that's the thing though, because like that, you know, the story of that came out. I mean, that was what 1989 when Balthazar was talking about. That was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
But before he, you know, I mean, what if he never told the story?
Yeah.
That element 115 could have been a thing for the last 75 years, 100 years.
Could have been, yeah.
You know,
You just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot to this story, and we could probably go on for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'd say I'm decently convinced of it. I'm skeptical of some things because, kind of like Bob Lazar said, you know, like some things are put there, you know, based off of his past experience, like just to kind of mess with you. So how much, like the tunnels and all that different stuff, how much of that is real, how much of this and that's real, J-Rod, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I do find interesting though about Bob Lazar, just real quick, is I think on the one documentary, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but I think it said like his name was in Los Alamos, like his name was in the book as an employee, but then it wasn't. But then they found one that was, like they tried to erase his identity.
Yeah, but one of the because his phone number was saved. That was his contact information was saved, like somehow.
Yeah.
Like even after the government tried to erase it,
Yeah.
there was something with this contract. Like there was a little piece of information still in there.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say that let me pull this back up real quick. It was the final guy that I had seen in this video, David Prehoff, the one that had flown the SR-71.
Yeah.
He said that in his final years of working at Area 51, now this would have been about 1985, 86-ish, I should say.
Okay.
So he did meet, you know, he met a lot of people along the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, way before he ended up leaving Area 51.
Yeah.
Now, some of the people he met there towards the end carried over to when Balthazar started.
Yeah.
And he did say that some of these people have said privately to him that they saw Balthazar there.
Okay.
That they have seen. Now, obviously, that's...
You don't know.
You really don't know. And I believe... Okay, yeah, so he did also say on the topic of S4, because for a while S4 wasn't even believed to be a thing. Yeah. It was very, very private. Like Area 51 was there,
yeah,
but not a lot of people knew about like I believe it's called Hangar 18, like the saucers and everything that were kept there.
Allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, so when Balthazar came out with that, you know, nobody really believed, like people knew that Area 51 was the thing. But S4, what it was still very classified, and
we still don't know really.
Exactly.
Like I said, they're like Jerry Freeman, right? Like he saw lights.
Yeah.
On Papoose Lake. Mm-hmm. You look on maps. I'll put a picture if I can. There's nothing there. It's just a mountain. Mm-hmm. Just, you know.
Exactly.
But what were you saying though?
I was just gonna conclude it with saying that David Prehoff, same guy.
Yeah.
That was that flew the SR-71, he had said, because he was describing you talked about it too, the Janet flights, mm-hmm. and how the windows are blacked out, you know, you can't see, like, you know, you barely even knew where you were going. Yeah. Until you got inside of the facility.
There's a bus that goes out there too.
Exactly. Now, he said that he would take the flight down to the main base, but this was at the time that S4 wasn't really known about.
Yeah, so before the whole Bob Lazar coming out.
Exactly. And he said that he would fly down with a lot of people on the plane, but then he said that when he would get out into his facility, he would see a bus going south.
Okay.
Now he didn't know what it was though.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't know what S4 was.
Yeah.
So when Balthazar came out with his story, he kind of put everything together.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that would have been, because he started at Area 51 in 1979.
So that's like kind of like the missing link then, right?
Exactly. So he didn't know anything about that. So with Balthazar saying that, it's kind of like a puzzle, where you're putting everything together.
Yeah.
Because David, Mr. Prioff was saying, well, I used to see a bus that people would take privately and go south. Had no idea where it was going.
Yeah.
But then Balthazar came out and said S4, and he's like, oh, so that's where they were going.
Yeah.
But still, you don't
know.
You really don't know.
Yeah.
Where anything was going.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, even in 2024. You know, even after like the UFO hearings and everything, I mean, people are starting to, I think, wake up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's footage now you could find online, and you got to think too. These people who come out, right? What do they have to gain? Like, especially like Navy people, they're made fun of, they're put down. Like, there's nothing really to gain. I mean, maybe your story goes viral, but maybe it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're like discharged from the military. Maybe, you know, your family thinks you're crazy. I mean, I think certain people, you know, probably, oh yeah, I'm gonna get famous, you know, and I'm gonna come forward with this whole UFO thing. But at the same time, though, it's like some people they have like everything to lose, pretty much. Like there's nothing to gain, really. I mean, which validates their story too. Like, look at Balthazar. He actually regrets, I think, coming forward with that whole thing, because like on the podcast, Joe Rogan podcast, he like sounds like he regrets it. Because here's a guy who has access to like the whole essentially unknown science, you know, thing. Like, you have amazing technology you can work on all day. You know, and I mean, I guess your freedoms are limited because you can't talk about it or whatever. But, like, you know, it's for a scientist, you know, somebody who's, like, a genius like him, pretty much, that's, like, great. But you come out with it, and his identity is pretty much almost erased, and he's called a lunatic, and he has, like, lots of stress about it now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. But, I mean, I think over time, though, like you said, it's just about building upon that. I mean, if other people like him find the courage to just go out and do it. I mean, and that's the crazy thing, though, too, because, you know, he, like you said, he is really the only guy. He's kind of like that loner.
Yeah.
That he's the only guy that's really come out about it. Yeah. But, you know, the crazy thing is I'm kind of surprised. Well, I shouldn't say surprised, but it's crazy to me that the government, like, didn't take another step to it. You know what I mean? Just of how shady everything is.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's only one guy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because even while I was watching, you know, some stuff like with my father, he was like, man, I'm surprised that they didn't do some kind of inside job to really take Balthazar out.
Yeah.
Because he's only one guy.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it really is crazy thinking about that.
Yeah.
You know,
but
one man. Exactly. So at that point, you can't.
Yeah, because cameras are on you.
Yeah.
People are watching you.
Exactly.
You know?
So, which is good. But, you know, at this point, though, I mean, 35 years later, I mean, if more people decide to come out,
I think they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
a little bit.
That'll only bring out more truth.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And apparently, it seems like UFOs are a national security threat. It seems like it. They're over bases, and, you know, all the footage just, like, off of the aircraft carriers and stuff like that, and, like, off of bases and stuff like that. And, like, the pilots, you know, people who come out recently about this, you know, and the footage released on the news and whatnot, it's like yeah, it's kind of worrying if you don't know what it is. If this is not U.S. and this is not anybody else, then what the hell is it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's kind of worrisome a little bit, you know, like what is it? You know.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine being a pilot of a plane.
And what do you say to your supervisor, your sergeant, or whoever is leading the operation? Like, oh, I saw a UFO. Like,
they're not gonna believe a word you say.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
Excuses, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure, like, if something like that happened to your brother's in the military, like what would you even say? You know.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You'd probably have to do laps or something, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you couldn't tell any of your superiors about that.
Yeah.
because it really is it's so forbidden.
Yeah.
And it, in that now in the general community, like us just sitting there talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, when it comes to the military though, it's a very serious topic.
Yeah.
It's very, 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 you get a lot of consequences. Like you said, they can, they can try to erase you. But I mean, I think Bulbasaur there still stands out on his own.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a massive
his story seems
base
consistent.
Exactly, and that too.
Like if your story's always changing, yeah, it's like hard to believe you. But this guy stayed pretty consistent the past almost 40 years.
Exactly.
And I mean, he obviously went to Los Alamos. He has like the background for it. Like, and, the interesting thing too is he's talking about like the whole job thing. Like, it's some other guy connected him with, different stuff, and there's all this paperwork and that. Like, like how do you even sign somebody up for something like that? It's very odd.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Not to go on about it, but there was another quick thing I had sent. Now I couldn't tell you the exact location or anything, but years after Bulbasaur was out of all of that, I mean, he had already spoken about his story and everything. I guess his laboratory, or one of his laboratories, I should say, was actually raided.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Because they supposedly, the government might have thought that he had one of their elements and stuff. It's really weird.
Yeah,
and
if his story didn't have grounding to it, if it wasn't grounded,
exactly. Why would you go and raid?
Yeah,
it makes no sense. Yeah.
So I think after all this research and us just talking about it, I think I'm sold on his story.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't know about the base or any of that, but I'd say I'm pretty sold on it. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Kind of on the whole thing. I think the base is probably more national security, but there's probably more to it than we know. Maybe tunnels, maybe underground. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
What are you what are your kind of thoughts overall, off of everything?
I mean, like I said in the beginning, I think, well, it's kind of like a person. Like you don't get to, you don't really know. Like you'll see somebody on the outside, but you don't know what it's like on the inside.
Yeah.
I think Area 51 is the same way. I think the outside looks like it's going to look like a general base.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to expand it anymore.
Yeah.
But inside, underneath of the skin,
underneath the surface.
It's underneath of the surface. I think it's a completely different ballgame.
Wow.
I mean, for real though.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Yeah.
I mean, anybody watching out here, if any of you guys have more information, if you want to comment, maybe correct us on some of the things. I'm not sure if everything is exactly right. Go ahead, comment below. If you like this type of content, subscribe. That's about all the time we have for tonight. We'll see you next week with a different topic. You stay safe out there. Don't get too risky. Don't have too much fun. And I'm Jordan, my good friend.
Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe.